Hello and welcome to Getting Your Money's Worth, the show that focuses on value. I'm Judith West, and before I introduce my guest, I'd like to wish our cameraman, Lionel Martinez, a very happy birthday on his birthday. He helps us make this show so wonderful. Thanks, Lionel, and happy birthday. Our guest today is Edward Mermelstein, founder of Edward Mermelstein Associates, and your law practice, which is global. You guys specialize in real estate.
That's correct.
Right. You're pretty busy these days, aren't you?
It's been a very fun time in the last year and a half.
I grew up reading the history books that people that, really got rich in America and stayed rich and kept their money, they invested in real estate. Does that business model still hold up?
Oh, very much so. In fact, I think right now we're seeing opportunities that we haven't seen probably in about 20 years in the real estate field. So
both commercial and residential?
I think depending on the market, absolutely. If you know where to look, there's opportunities we haven't seen in at least 20 years.
Right. So, but let's talk about all those folks who are who are not seeing opportunities, but are instead struggling. A lot of homeowners are in trouble these days.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know that you work with that population, do you?
Absolutely. We
have. From your experiences, Ed, what was the problem? People felt that prices would be like trees, just go to the sky, or banks were greedy. What's the genesis of the problem?
Well, the problem was in many different areas and perpetuated by everyone. So between the banks allowing people to take out loans that really shouldn't have been taking out loans, investors in residential real estate that really had no qualification being investors in real estate.
They wanted to flip or something?
Absolutely. Appraisers who had every incentive to inflate the pricing of homes just so that they could earn their fees because banks were pushing them to keep those numbers as high as possible. So all of these combinations, including the secondary market, which allowed all of this to exist and continue growing, where it was really artificial at the end of the day, and we all see that looking back.
Yeah, right. Looking back, 2020
right.
Hindsight, right? Right. So, what do you do to help people?
At this point, it's if we're talking about individuals
right.
in a residential property, you're trying to evaluate the situation and see if they're really in a position to continue paying their mortgage, or if this is something that's just an impossibility if you're looking down the road a year or two going forward.
There's a strategy now that Americans that we never had in our value system, which is a strategy a default by strategy, walking away from because you're so underwater. It's cheaper to walk away and rent. We never had that in our lexicon, in our way of life before, Ed.
Yes, it was generally not available to the common person. It was something that investors were doing in the commercial field back in the 80s and 90s, and most people weren't able to just walk away because they were either in fear of ruining their credit, which that concept totally disappeared recently, or they were so heavily invested into the property that mentally they just couldn't separate themselves.
Or maybe they had too much integrity. They saw it as a responsibility.
It was definitely...
integrity is still a word in our vocabulary.
It was woven into the fabric of our society that you can't just walk away from your home, and that's definitely changed.
Here in New York City, just in the past couple of weeks, we had, a very well-respected name in real estate walk away from what, $4.5 billion in debt or something.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Unbelievable, you're right. And their credit was not ruined.
It's wonderful to be in America.
Well, I suppose so. But there are folks that say, we hear it all the time on Getting Your Money's Worth, we're doing the right thing. We're paying our mortgage. We're trying, and we can't get any modification. The guy who, in fact, I think you have to be default for 3 months or something before you can even talk to a bank.
Right.
It seems as though the wrong clientele is being rewarded with help.
Right. The hurdles that have been put in place in many cases don't make sense. And those who really need to be helped the most are really getting the least amount of help.
Right.
And there's definitely questions that should be asked, and we have to really think about how to fix this problem, not by just throwing money at it to stop the dam from bursting, but to really figure out the underlying reasons for how all of this came about.
Well, I mean, you do this for a living. What kinds of ideas have you come up with to help? Our president said he takes an idea from anybody.
Right, and I was going to say that if I had the scenario to fix the problem, I'd be president. But
right.
Unfortunately, there's no quick fixes, and what's going to happen in the next few years will really fix the problem on its own. And I'm not necessarily one to say let government stay out of this issue, but the more you see money being thrown at the problem, the worse it seems to get.
Yeah. Is it just a matter, Ed, of letting the oversaturated housing market, the inventory, just sell itself off at whatever price it sells itself off?
And I think what we've seen in history is the only way to let the problem resolve itself is let time go by, because it will resolve itself. The market corrects itself one way or another.
Eventually.
Right. And we're in a situation here in America where it's definitely much better than the rest of the world. And when I say the rest of the world, we're talking about South America or Europe that has tremendously more problems than we do. And the governments there continue to prop those problems up, basically letting time go by, and things just continue getting worse and worse and worse. And that's one of the reasons why at the end of the day, most of the world looks to America as a way to fix the problem.
Yeah,
and we do.
And we do, somehow. The business of the banks getting themselves so much in trouble, and the TARP money helping them, now not wanting to lend credits. Did that all come from greed?
Well, when you allow the system to take advantage of the larger population, the system will continue getting larger and larger and larger, simply because at the end of the day it is greed. So if people are making more and more money with every day that passes and no one is there to say this is wrong, this can't continue, it's going to eventually not just blow up, but hurt everyone that has been involved in the system.
So the banking system, in your opinion, can't be allowed to oversight itself. It needs regulation? Or is that a bad word?
No, there's no question that it needs regulation. The question is who is the right party to decide what that regulation should be. And it's not necessarily the government, but the government, along with the business, has to find a common ground where it makes sense. And it shouldn't be through lobbying. It should be from parties sitting across the table from each other, trying to figure out a way to let the process go forward without stifling it to the point where it can't.
I mean, first we loaned all this money to help the banks, and now we're busy beating them up.
Right.
It seems oxymoronic.
Yeah, and then it's a question of for how long are we going to continue getting investment into our country from foreign countries, and at which point are they going to be scared and pull their money back, and that will really cause some very serious issues.
Your real estate business is global.
That's correct.
Right. So tell me something. Are you dealing with some of these same problems? You said that in some ways America was better off.
Well, one way we're better off is that the market is definitely a much freer market than the rest of the world. we're also the largest market when you're talking about real estate. So what we've gone through in the last 100 years, most countries are modeling their system after what we're doing. For example, many of the planners in China are being brought over from the United States, and they are doing zoning studies for the Chinese government and trying to figure out how to not allow what has happened here to have happened there. Their problems are totally different, from what we're seeing, but ultimately, again, everyone always looks to what is America doing to try to fix it. And I believe at the end of the day, we have the intelligence and the history behind us that will lead us out of this mess.
Eventually. So now you're optimistic.
Very much so. And I've been optimistic throughout this whole period. It's, again, a question of time and whether it's going to be 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. But ultimately, we are going to find a new mechanism that will allow this system to expand the way it used to.
Is now a good time to buy a house? I started out by asking you, I'm going to ask you again. What does it depend on? Where it is, how much money you have?
Well, I always tell my clients, buy the best in the best area, and it's going to be hard for you to lose. So if whatever you can afford, go to whatever you can afford, but spend a little extra, but in a level that is a little bit maybe reaching higher than you can normally reach, but go after the best location, because
location
is definitely hard to beat. And then the other side of it is that try to live within your means, because what we were seeing 3-4 years ago, where people were putting down 5% or in certain cases nothing, buying homes with adjustable rates that could go up by 100%, 200%.
They didn't even know if they were signing half the time.
A lot of the times people were just taken advantage of, and it was really predatory. And that is one thing that I think is very important that we can't allow to have happen again. When you're talking about what type of legislation should be inserted into our system, it's really to not allow the common person to be taken advantage of by someone who really controls the system.
Right. Banks do have a responsibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We talk about individual responsibility, but banks do have a responsibility to present their products in a way that is suitable for the client they're talking to. It's really no less than anybody else having a warranty on any other product that they develop.
Right. Now, there's definitely a level of ethics that should be adhered to, because ultimately we look to people more intelligent than us to control the system.
Or even if that's their business, we figure if we go to a bank, we don't expect to be taken advantage of.
A bank, a doctor, a lawyer,
whatever you're right. Or real estate lawyer. Right. Thank you for being on this show. I appreciate your insights, and hope that you continue to help people who need you. And thank you for us. Thank you for being on Getting Your Money's Worth. I'm Judith West, and you're watching Getting Your Money's Worth. Thanks for watching.